I think a real highlight is actually the balance of the fair, in the sense that I feel like we finally have a fair where the positions galleries with the youngest artists in the fair, and then the Nova galleries with the most recent work in the fair, and then Survey, the new sector with the historical positions, are all really, really strong. In addition to which, the main sector of the fair, the gallery sector, has really seen an unparalleled degree of quality and presentation within the booths.
It's the one place where you can go and see a real survey of what's going on in the market side of contemporary art. It's also an opportunity to just see all the dealers in one forum and engage not just on what's happening in the booth, but also what they're working on and other material that's available by artists that I'm interested in. So it's a great singular moment to really see everything.
I was really taken with the survey section, which I guess is a new section for Art Basel. I guess for me personally, it corresponds to my own interests and my own program in terms of, this sort of under-recognized artists. Broadway 1602 had a great booth, and Michelle Stewart, I'm a big fan of that work. To see it in that booth was nice. And Nikki Desaint-Fall, who's an artist who I think a lot of younger artists are starting to look at again. That was really, I guess, a high point for me.
Two very special things this year, which are very different from each other. At OMR from Mexico is a single work by James Turrell, which is the kind of thing that you would never get to see normally in an art fair. You see a large rectangle on the wall of color, and it's only after spending some time with it that you realize it's not on the wall at all, but it's a hole. And at Van Doren Waxter Gallery is a very beautiful selection of very rare Joseph Cornell works from the 1930s, which is especially early for that artist.
Everybody loves to come here, everybody loves the sun, and I think what's interesting is that this is very much a kind of kick back your heels sort of fair. Of course it's serious, of course it's businesslike, but galleries feel they can bring slightly more blingy work, slightly more upbeat work, whether it's a David Strigley saying it's okay in multiple colours, whether it's a great big swooshy Martin Creed neon saying people feel they can be a bit more frivolous.
Seen a couple pieces at the fair that I really liked. Mark Quinn, he's working on a new series of pieces that are aluminum sheets that he is painting and sort of distressing, and he's literally kicking them and dragging them across the floor of the studio. And the first one that he's shown ever is at the fair now.
There are so many serious pieces of work. Artists turn political as well. Robert Longo, for example, at Petzl, New York, he shows one piece on Ferguson. He took photos from newspapers and made a big drawing where you see the police marching towards us.
There's been many highlights for me. I've really enjoyed the talks, the films. One of my kind of favorite booths was the booth by Kafayan Gallery with an artist called Harer Sarkissian. A very kind of political take on Syria right now at the moment, where the artist recreated a model of his house. And the video is basically the artist destroying this model of this house that he hasn't been able to visit in the last 4 to 5 years because of the ongoing crisis in Syria. And he destroys the house in the video as a way of retaining his memories of the property before it may actually really be destroyed.
I've been coming here for many years, and since the public section started. And I've always enjoyed it, but I think this year is one of my particular favorites. I like the Nancy Rubin sculpture, the assemblage of different objects. I like the Yinka Schonebeer wind sculpture that looks like a piece of fabric blowing in the wind. And also I just watched the performance, a young guy who had people spray painting a wall, and then they deconstructed that wall and moved it to another part of the park and reinstalled it in a completely different way. So I thought that was fabulous.
It's a very special film. We've been trying to get this movie made for about 11 years. It's about Walter and Margaret Keane, They were sort of the biggest selling painters of the 1960s. Walter is the guy who kind of invented the mass marketing of art. You know, big collectors weren't really buying his kind of painting, so he figured out a way to bring it right to the common man. And so he kept on making the prints cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, so basically they were posters. But that's only part of the story, because the real story is he wasn't really even the artist, that his wife was the one doing the art, and he was taking credit for it. His genius of marketing is what took this art to the world, but the movie is really through the eyes of Margaret, who is trying to express herself through these paintings, but they're being interpreted as kitsch because they're sort of being presented by this masculine man.
This week at Art Basel Miami Beach, I was lucky enough to get a ticket to Ryan McNamara's meme, which is about the internet. Part of it is about thwarting expectations. When you're in a performance, there's an expectation that you sit in your chair and you watch someone else move. And what I can say is it changes your ideas about your own ability to be mobile and immobile, and your relationship to every other aspect of the individuals in the room, whether they're actual performers or the other audience members. And then also your understanding of how perception, like from what vantage point as a metaphor you look at something, how it changes how you understand it and then affects your behavior and expands on from there.